Agitorium nostrum in nomine Domini. The new encyclical here, we just finished Immortality Day with a slight detour on the doctrine of the Church on Church and State. In a summary, it's a wonderful summary. Don't lose those copies I gave you. It's a very, very good summary. Now we begin Pope Leo XIII's encyclical on the nature of human liberty. Here we go into a bit of Thomistic psychology and philosophy. And the wonderful thing about Pope Leo XIII's encyclicals is they're solid doctrinally and they go deep. So this was promulgated legitimately on June 20th, what year?
1884.
June 20th?
What year?
1884.
1884.
April 20th.
Oh, isn't this?
The inside says June 20th.
The outside says April 20th.
Let me see here.
Oh, that's the 1888.
The Freemasons were tampering with this.
Well, it's given on the 20th day of June, 1988. So it was promulgated on June 20th, 1988. So whoever printed this, I think there's a mistake. Yeah, there must be a mistake.
That's fine.
Whoever typed it made a...
June 20th, 1888.
Yeah.
It says April 20th.
Yeah, so there's a little error on the front cover. Okay, not a big deal. To the patriarchs, primates, archbishops, and bishops of the Catholic world in grace and communion with the Apostolic See. Venerable brethren, health, salus, salut, and whatever is in Italian, and apostolic benediction. So he's going to go into what liberty really is. And if you remember Archbishop Lefebvre in the book they haven't crowned him, he draws from this heavily. So we're going right into the heart of what is liberty. What is liberty? Anybody?
The freedom to do what you want.
No.
Well, that's what the common understanding of it is, yeah?
Liberty is the freedom to choose between goods. To choose amongst the goods.
Okay. Anybody else?
It's the freedom to choose what's right.
Yes. Simply put, is liberty and freedom the ability to do evil and good and choose evil and good?
No.
Well, let's see. Let's see what's the true teaching on this. Liberty, the highest of natural endowments, being the portion only of intellectual or rational creatures, confers on man this dignity that he is in the hand of his counsel. That's from, so the footnotes are in the back, Ecclesiasticus 15:14. So, do the birds have liberty? They can fly where they want, but they have liberty to improve their nest building. Can they put doors and windows on their nests?
No.
A heating system? Can bees improve their hives? Paint them so they have a better color?
No.
No. So they're programmed to act in such a way. Bees will always act like bees and make honey. Ants will always act like ants and do what ants do. Always busy. Birds will always do what birds do, fly. It's in their nature, it's programmed, but they're not free to act otherwise. You and I, men and angels, we are free to act otherwise. We can act inhuman. We can be cruel. We can be animals. We can be more virtuous, moral. We can choose these things. So, he is in the hand of his counsel and has power over his actions. But the manner in which such dignity is exercised is of the greatest moment, inasmuch as on the use that is made of liberty, the highest good and the greatest evil alike depend. Read on, please, Andres.
Man indeed is free to obey his reason, to seek moral good, and to strive unswervingly after his last end. Yet he is free also to turn aside to all other things, and in pursuing the empty semblance of good, to disturb rightful order, and to fall headlong into the destruction which he has voluntarily chosen. The Redeemer of mankind, Jesus Christ, having restored, and exalted the original dignity of nature, vouchsafed special assistance to the will of man, and by the gifts of his grace here and the promise of heavenly bliss hereafter, he raised it to a nobler state. In like manner, this great gift of nature has ever been, and always will be, deservingly cherished by the Catholic Church. For to her alone has been committed the charge of handing down to all ages the benefits purchased for us by Jesus Christ. Yet, there are many who imagine that the Church is hostile to human liberty, having a false and absurd notion as to what liberty is. Either they pervert the very idea of freedom, or they extend it at their pleasure to many things, in respect of which men cannot rightly be regarded as free.
Yes, so is that a free man who chooses to get drunk every day?
No.
No.
He becomes a slave to what?
Alcohol.
To his passions, yeah. He becomes a slave, and it can become so addicting that he can't even free himself from it without great effort and even much help. So Pope Leo here is the 13th is laying down the whole question. What is liberty? It's the highest dignity, yet men can use it to their good or evil, but it is something given by God, the Redeemer, only to men and angels in a very special way. Paragraph 2, Tony.
We have on other occasions, and especially in our encyclical letter, Immortale Dei, in treating of the so-called modern liberties, distinguished between their good and evil elements, and we have shown that whatsoever is good in those liberties is as ancient as truth itself, and that the Church has always most willingly approved and practiced that good. But whatsoever has been added as new is, to tell the plain truth, a vitiated kind, the fruit of the disorders of the age, and of an insatiate longing after novelties. Seeing, however, that many cling so obstinately to their own opinion in this matter as to imagine these modern liberties, cankered as they are, to be the greatest glory of our age, and the very basis of civil life, without which no perfect government can be conceived, we feel it a pressing duty for the sake of the common good to treat separately of this subject.
Yeah, so in other words, there's so many misunderstandings about what true liberty is. Many think it's just cankered by vice and sin, that I can choose what I want, believe what I want, act the way I want. Is this true liberty? So he's going to go into this. And he makes the distinctions between the kinds of liberty. Paragraph 3, Guadalupe.
It is with moral liberty, whether in individuals or in communities, that we proceed at once to deal. But first of all, it will be well to speak briefly of natural liberty, for, although it is distinct and separate from moral liberty, natural freedom is the fountainhead from which liberty of whatsoever kind flows. Suavi suaque sponte.
Sweetly and on its own spontaneous. So
the unanimous consent and judgment of men, which is the trusty voice of nature, recognizes this natural liberty in those only who are endowed with intelligence or reason. And it is by his use of this that man is rightly regarded as responsible for his actions.
So what makes him responsible for his actions and a subject to have real freedom?
The fact that he has intelligence.
Intelligence and
Reason.
reason. Intelligence, God made the mind, the intelligence, to seek what?
Seeking
Truth.
Truth and the intellect is ordered to know truth. The will is ordered to know what?
Goodness, or do good.
Yes, the good. Good. Whatever form the good is. So that's a basic structure God has built into man's intellect and will. And the angels have this too. Go on.
For while other animate creatures follow their senses, seeking good and avoiding evil only by instinct, man has reason to guide him in each and every act of his life.
Okay, huge distinction that even many in the modern world completely have lost grasp of. Animate creatures, animals, follow their senses. They seek good and avoid evil only by what?
Instinct.
Yes. Who built the instinct in?
God.
Yes. And he made the deer. The deer, they think they have an instinct to save their life, but they go jump in front of cars and trucks. But they're just following instinct. Their fear dominates over their reason. Well, they don't have reason, but they should have a sense of to save their life. But anyway. But animals, they are programmed with instinct. It's built into them. But man has freedom to think and act the way he chooses to act. Go ahead. Yes?
I was going to ask a follow-up question. What about animals like dolphins who seem to learn?
Well, they can be programmed by those who instruct and repeat and teach and give them treats. They can learn some modes of behavior, right?
But they don't learn in the same way that humans learn.
Oh, of course not. No. The Navy SEALs were using dolphins to sniff out, and because they can sense, they can sense radioactive behavior or this kind of. So they were using them to locate mines, underwater mines, and so animals can be, but it's always a human reason directing them.
Right.
Like when you go to SeaWorld and the huge, what do they call those? Killer whales, yeah, that do all these tricks and flip, and they constantly have to give them treats, otherwise, and the treat is, fish. But sometimes they step out of line and they kill or drown some of the workers. It happens every so often. So, people, even some dogs, they might be pets and nice all their life, but some of them turn on their masters too. It's a strange thing. And every year someone gets usually killed in Yellowstone National Park because some people get out of their cars, they see some bear, and they walk up. There's actually a video of this. A woman the husband was feeding the bear and the woman was filming it, his wife. He's walking up to these huge grizzlies, and they're just sitting there. And he's walking up to them with Wonder Bread. Here, kitty, kitty, kitty. Here. And, it's just totally clueless on reality. Well, the bear, they see him get closer and closer, and they look at each other, and this looks like a nice whopper. So they can care less about his Wonder Bread, and they just maw him and clobber him and tear him up right there. And the wife is filming this, and she's screaming and panicking. So anyway, men can act as if they had no reason. Go on.
Reason sees that whatever things that are held to be good upon earth may exist or may not, and discerning that none of them are of necessity for us, it leaves the will free to choose what it pleases. But man can judge of this contingency.
Contingency. Contingency means it may or may not be. Something that's necessary must be this way. Contingency is, you may use sugar or honey, so to speak. It doesn't have to be this way or that way. But man can judge of this contingency, as we say, only
because he has a soul that is simple, spiritual, and intellectual. A soul, therefore, which is not produced by matter, and does not depend on matter for its existence, but which is created immediately by God, and far surpassing the condition of things material, has a life and action of its own. So that, knowing the unchangeable and necessary reasons of what is true and good, it sees that no particular kind of good is necessary to us. When, therefore, it is established that man's soul is immortal and endowed with reason, and not bound up with things material, the foundation of natural liberty is at once most firmly laid.
yes. So man has a immortal soul and reason. So if I say the word loyalty or honor or magnificence, can you touch these things?
No.
But we can discuss them. And they're immaterial. So if you and I can discuss immaterial things, that means we must have something in us that not only can act immaterial, but is. Agere sequitur esse. Agere sequitur esse. To how a thing acts follows on how
Follows its being.
it's being, yes. Agere sequitur esse. So, this pen is roundness, right? Its being is round, so it acts round when it has the occasion. It rolls. Its being is round, so it acts round. Man's being is intellectual. He has intellect and will. So he can act intellectually and with will, without being tied down to matter. So we can discuss loyalty, honor, beauty, goodness. Discuss these things, but you can't touch them. That proves we have an immortal soul. It proves we have a spiritual being in us, which the animals don't have. So, Pope Leo XIII lays down this foundation. Man has reason and will and a soul. And this is what determines what's true liberty. But what about this soul? What's its purpose? What's it made for? Let's see. 4. Who's next? Michael?
As the Catholic Church declares in the strongest terms, the simplicity, spirituality, and immortality of the soul, so with unequaled constancy and publicity, she ever also asserts its freedom. These truths she has always taught and has sustained them as a dogma of faith. And whenever heretics or innovators have attacked the liberty of man, the Church has defended it and protected this noble possession from destruction.
Okay, so there was, for an example, errors in the early church that said man is determined by the stars. His fate is determined. He's not free. The stars, the constellation, whatever day you're born on, sets and determines what you're going to be, where you're going to go. And the church just always condemned this nonsense, this superstition, right? Freud, who greatly influenced the 19th century and still does the 20th century. Freud based everything on the animal instinct. So man cannot but act like an animal. But that's not true. Men can overcome their passions. They can control them. They can practice the virtue of temperance regarding food and drink and the pleasures pertaining to marriage. So it's not true. Men are not fated by some external thing. We are free. You're at the steering wheel and you have the foot to the accelerator. You're free to go where you want, so to speak. But within certain confines. You go off a cliff, you're in trouble. All right? So, where are we here?
History bears witness.
Yes, go on, Michael.
History bears witness to the energy with which she met the fury of the Manichaeans and others like them, and the earnestness with which in later years she defended human liberty at the Council of Trent and against the followers of Jansenius is known to all. At no time and in no place has she held truce with fatalism.
Yeah, fatalism is the teaching that his fate is set and determined. He can't change it. So this influences the modern thinking in many ways, such as, he didn't have his father, he grew up around druggies, so he's in jail and he's a druggie because he couldn't help it. He couldn't help murder someone because that's all he learned. No, he had free will. Sure, it was what he learned, but he didn't have to follow it, right? But they do that in the modern psychology. They excuse every sin and vice because, that's the influence. Or he was he didn't get vitamin C growing up as much as he should have, so he couldn't control himself. Well, that's not true. We have full control over our actions. Granted, we can be influenced. Granted, passion can have a terrible sway in our decisions, such as the passion of anger can drive someone to do enormous crimes if he can't control it. That goes with every passion, right? So, fatalism, that man is determined by fate. So the church has always defended true freedom. Isn't that interesting? The church is the one who defends true freedom. So, 5, liberty then, as we have said, go on, Anthony.
Belongs only to those who have the gift of reason or intelligence. Considered as to its nature, it is the faculty of choosing means fitted for the end proposed. For he is master of his actions who can choose one thing out of many. Okay,
there is the definition of liberty. Let me write it down. This is the one Bishop Williamson gave us, and it's a great definition, and it's based on the encyclicals of the Pope. So what is true liberty? This is something you have to know and memorize and have it set into your blood. And often you'll have, as priests, God willing, you'll have to preach about this. What is true liberty? What's false liberty? As St. Peter says, they make liberty a cloak from malice. So what is true liberty is the faculty of choosing the means to the end. While keeping order to the end. An end, of course, is the term of something. The beginning, the end is its purpose, its goal, obviously. So you're going to find that always in scholastic language. The end of something is the finis, the purpose, the end, the goal. So what is liberty, Anthony?
The faculty of choosing the means to the end, while keeping order to the end.
What is liberty, Michael?
The faculty of choosing the means to the end while keeping the order to the end.
Guadalupe?
Liberty is the faculty of choosing the means to the end while keeping order to the end.
Tony?
Liberty is the faculty of choosing the means to the end while keeping order to the end.
Andres?
Liberty is the faculty of choosing the means to the end while keeping order to the end.
Yeah, so remember the Ignatian exercises. This is one of the first principle and foundation meditations. I am made for God. Right? Everything I do, everything I have is ordered to that end, whether it's my car, my bottle of wine, my money, my wife. All this is ordered to the end to go to God. This is supposed to be a car. Yeah. Right? So all that, I have the faculty of choosing the means to the end. The end is God, and I have the faculty of choosing the means, the state of life, where I'm going to live, what I'm going to do. I have the freedom to do this, but while keeping order to the end. But if I'm, let's say I'm married and faithful to one wife, I have no right to run with another woman. I might like wine, but if I use it to get drunk and abuse it and hurt my family and hurt myself or hurt somebody else in a car crash, that's a disorder, right? So these become an abuse of free will. But they're good, right? This is the trick of the devil and the trick of the intelligence. We can perceive money or the woman or beer or car or whatever in the proper order, but we can also perceive it as a disordered good. So that if I make money my love and sole purpose, and I neglect my wife and family, but I just want to get more money and be a successful businessman in the world, but whether for fame or honor or glory, it's a disorder. And it's not order to the end. And that's what constitutes a sin. It's a slight offense against God's law. It's a venial sin. If I turn my back against God and, for example, commit adultery against my wife and turn my back to God for this, it's an abuse of a good thing. You see? So, unlike Puritanism and Protestantism, many of the Puritan sects said, well, alcohol makes man drunk. Alcohol must be banned because it's evil. So ban alcohol. That was the prohibition in the United States. That's how Protestant USA was. They actually banned alcohol as an evil. Which is so stupid, because evil's not in the object, the evil's in what?
Man.
Man's misuse of the object. Same with all the gun control. They want to abolish guns in the United States. They're going to have a hard time, but with all the news and propaganda and fake dress rehearsals, they can persuade men in another 10 years to deliver their guns. And they'll do it through the media, through the lies, and through the fake staged shootings. So, they want to ban guns. Is it guns that are evil? No. It's the idiots who are misusing the guns that are evil, right? And as many men said, if everyone carries guns, it sure puts an end to wild murders, because people are there to put a man who's out of control in control. Yeah.
So then, as far as principles are concerned, a thing is never evil in itself.
Right. Matter is good. This was very contrary to that Manichaean / Jansenist / Puritan mentality that matter is evil. The matter is not evil. Wine is good. God made 153 gallons of it from water. So what's the sin is in the distortion of the intellect and will. The intellect sees it as a good, but they lose sight of the whole picture, and they go after it. The will wants that good. And going after that good, let's say the bottle, he's over drinking. He's drinking too much. And he's spending the money that he should be spent to feed the family on his alcohol. And there was I often tell this story as well. In Nashville, Tennessee, I knew an old Polish couple, and he said that they, as young people who came to the U.S., there was a very good Monsignor, a good priest, before Vatican II, who he knew of a case where the father was a drunkard and he was going to the bar, and the wife came to the priest and said, "Father, I don't mean to talk evil of my husband, but I have to tell somebody. He's not coming home on time. He's spending the money to feed the family in the bar, the children are hungry, the family, we need him home, and things are in disorder. I'm trying my best to be a good wife. I know I probably am not perfect, and so forth and so forth. So the Monsignor, he went to the bar, walked into the bar, found the husband, picked him up by the shirt, dragged him out in front of the bar and put him up against the wall. This is the local parish priest. and said, what are you doing? What are you doing here? You're a father. How are you going to answer to God for this? And he started talking to him. And, well, he turned his life around. That's what he needed, that man. He turned his life around, stopped going to the bar, became a better husband, and they became more devout Catholics. So that's an example where sometimes the priest has to be firm. Like St. John Bosco had to kick some boys out of the school. It broke his heart, it broke their heart, but they did enough to get themselves deserving of that. So anyway, intelligence and will, it's the misuse of a good thing that establishes what a sin is, right? So that regards the pleasures of eating, drinking, and what pertains to marriage. God put guardrails. So drinking wine or beer is fine, but if you are go overboard and get drunk, that's a mortal sin. It's a misuse of a good thing. And if one is married, they may use the pleasures pertaining to marriage and children. But if one's not married, we're not allowed to indulge in these willfully and knowingly. So one must pray and avoid occasions of sins and so forth. And if one is married, he's not allowed even to think of another woman with lust. His heart must be pure for God and faithful to his one wife, our husband. So you see, the laws of God guard our wild, disordered nature and help us to be happy and obtain our end. 5. So we saw, Michael, were you reading?
It was me.
Okay, the faculty of choosing the means fitted to the end proposed, for he is master of his actions who can choose one thing out of many. So what is liberty, everybody?
The faculty of choosing the means to the end while keeping order to the end.
Yeah, that's the Bishop Williamson precise definition, which is very, he had a gift for condensing things. Go on.
Now, since everything chosen as a means is viewed as good or useful, and since good, as such, is a proper object of our desire, it follows that freedom of choice is a property of the will, or, rather, is identical with the will insofar as it has in its action the faculty of choice. But the will cannot proceed to act until it is enlightened by the knowledge possessed by the intellect. In other words, the good wished by the will is necessarily good insofar as it is known by the intellect.
Okay, hold on. These are some deep points, and it takes a while to chew them over and think about it and pray over it. Let's back up a little bit. But the will cannot proceed to act unless it is enlightened by the knowledge possessed by the intellect. Because nihil appetitor quod non prius apprehenditur. Another principle from Aristotle and St. Thomas. Nihil appetitor quod non prius apprehenditur. Anybody give a shot?
One does not ask for what one does not know.
All right, you're close. Apprehend something intellectually. To apprehend is to understand, to grasp something. So nothing is desired what is not first apprehended. Nothing's desired unless you first apprehend it. So you got to know before you desire something, right? Little Johnny, he first knows the ice cream cone is there, and then he desires it because he apprehends, oh, it's a good thing, and I'm going to go for the ice cream cone. Or a young guy who's offered a good job, he understands it's a good paying job, it's going to give him a trade, it help him towards his future. He apprehends this is good, so he desires it. It's very similar to nothing is intellect, which is not first in the senses, but nothing is desired unless it is first known. Nicul appetitor, quo non prius apprehenditur. And these are called primary principles. They're basic principles of reality. So, but the will cannot proceed to act unless it is enlightened by the knowledge possessed by the intellect. So the intellect is the steering wheel, the accelerator and brake is the will. In other words, the good wished by the will is necessarily good insofar as it is known by the intellect. So the ice cream known by little Johnny, he sees it as a good. And this is the more because in all voluntary acts, choice is subsequent to a judgment upon the truth of the good presented, declaring to which good preference should be given. Bottom of page 4, go on, Anthony. No sensible
man can doubt that judgment is an act of reason, not of the will. The end, or object, both of the rational will and of its liberty, is that good only which is in conformity with reason.
Right. So reason sees these things as good, but men's reason can make bad judgments as well, right? So that's why the light of faith guides our dark reason. 6, paragraph, Therese.
Since, however, both these faculties are imperfect, it is possible, as is often seen, that the reason should propose something which is not really good, but which has the appearance of good, and that the will should choose accordingly.
Okay, so what faculties is he talking about?
The intellect and the will.
Right. But he's saying here that the intellect is infallible. It always chooses what's right, right?
No. Because of the darkness of ignorance.
Yes, and also the pull of passion. Passion can make man make bad decisions. So it has the appearance of good, that the will should choose accordingly. So the will can blindly choose something wrong, and the intellect be clouded. 4, go on.
For as the possibility of error and actual error are defects of the mind, and attest its imperfection, so the pursuit of what has a false appearance of good, though a proof of our freedom, just as a disease is proof of our vitality, implies defect in human liberty.
Right, so someone who's sick proves health. You can't be sick unless you're healthy. You have health, and if you lose your health, then, or some point of health, you only know sickness in relation to health. Right? So it is the defect of bad decisions, he's saying here, implies a defect of human liberty. So man's free, but he can mess up by his own will. So we're going to continue this. As you see, it goes quite deep, and it's wonderful. So. Agitorium nostrum in nomine Domini.